everyone, Stoltec Moto here. Following up on the last video we did for our FZ-10 almost 6 months ago, back in July when we first got the bike. Wanted to give a few updates and some of the thoughts that we've had. We've done a lot of work on the bike. Some of it's obvious and other stuff less so. So I figured we would give you guys a run around for some of the things that we did. Real quick, I guess in the first order, the things that you could see most obviously are the wheels. These are a set of Carrozzeria wheels in wine red. They're a couple pounds lighter on each end than the factory wheels. This was done to give us a second set of wheels, tires, and brakes for the track. So we're gonna have some easy swaps coming up this season. They look pretty good. Made in America here from Japanese forgings from Moto. Really nice looking wheels. They're definitely stronger than the cast aluminum. They certainly turn heads. And as I mentioned, they're a little bit lighter. That's a lot of aesthetics, but they do work really nice. The other things that we addressed earlier on, as you could see up front, the brakes. The FZ-10 was definitely a little lacking in the braking department. It always worked really good. There was never a threat that you were going to run into somebody or yet you were going to miss your turn or anything along those lines. It just didn't instill a lot of confidence. There was a lot of slop in the lever. So what we did is, you can kind of see in here, we developed some new stainless steel brake lines. We developed these with Spiegler. They replace all the hard lines to reduce the number of connections for potential leak points. They save about 1.2, 1.3 pounds, and they firm up the lever a lot. There's a ton of different pad choices out there. Brembo, your EBC stuff, Gaffer, etc., etc., etc. We're running CLs right now, which work very well, but there's a lot of options for you. We're also running the R1m Calipers. Really, it's very similar to the caliper on the FZ-10. However, it has an aluminum piston. So it's a little bit lighter. You save some unsprung weight, and it helps with heat transfer from the brake to the fluid. So you increase the thermal mass of the system a bit more for track usage. For the street, you're probably not going to notice it, but it's a nice little touch. Same thing with the Gaffer rotors. These are the wave rotors. Very nice rotors. They also save quite a bit of weight, all unsprung and rotating, obviously. They do increase the initial bite, which is nice. You know, it's not something that I would say is required for most street riding. Definitely nice on the racetrack. They work very well. We used them for years on our FZ-9. Very nice there. We got one out back as well, which I'll show you. And that actually saves quite a bit of weight because the factory one is very heavy. We also did up front, you can see the ASV lever. It's working with the 2015 and onward Nissan radial master cylinder. So that's OEM from Yamaha. 16 mil piston versus the stock 15. And it really made a huge difference when we were trying to tighten up that feel at the lever. That was tremendous. What else do we have here? We got the Brembo reservoir, it bolts on. We got the mirror mount here so that you can use the clamp with your stock mirror, not have to worry about using a bar end mirror. So that's kind of it for the brakes right now. They work really good. There's really nothing to argue about them. They were quite good actually up until, I would say they were really good even up until we did the rotors, but the rotors really just made a big difference. So regardless of what you do, whether it's just pads or lines or like the master cylinder, there's a lot of opportunity for improvement on this bike. So brakes aside, wheels aside, we've been doing a lot of work on the suspension. This probably took us, the shock alone, we've been working with Penske for a very long time, probably about 4 to 5 months total. What you'll see here is the Penske 8983 double clicker, also going to be available in the 8987 triple clicker. This is nice. Separate adjustment for compression, rebound, preload, ride height, and it fits just like stock. You do have to do a tiny bit of trimming on the under tray here for clearance, but otherwise it's a direct bolt in. And, you know, after all that work, I have to say it does ride an awful lot better. This bike was always very firm, constantly going to bottom out. I would say guys, even in the 170 to 180 pound range, still had problems. So if you're heavier than that, you're going to have to start looking into it. And there was a lot of limitations with the stock shock, which we're not going to go over here for time limits. But that was a big difference. Can't tell on the forks right now, but we also did some work. We got some drop-in springs. So if the stock fork springs are too heavy or too light for you, we have options for those. So in our case, they came with a set of 0.93s from the factory, which for my weight and gear, I'm about 200 pounds in gear with everything all said and done. They were a touch on the heavy side. 0.90s in here now, drop the oil height a little bit. It works much more linearly, a lot better of a feel, a little bit more composed on the rougher road. So that was a nice touch as well. We started doing some work on the revalve for the forks, but it kind of timed it just right with winter. So we're waiting for some clearer, sunnier days, but we do have some work going on and we'll have something available soon. So that kind of covers the suspension for right now. I'm kind of glossing over a lot of the work that we did, but it kind of sums up as that. It rides an awful lot better now. You still get a tremendous amount of feel, actually more than you had before. And it just works the way, in my opinion, it should have from Yamaha. The comfort was just subpar from the factory. Other things that you might see, got the frame sliders here from Woodcraft. They tuck in real nice. No cutting of the bodywork is required. Obviously, just like all the Woodcraft products, if you do crash, you can actually take off that puck here and replace it without changing out the base. And what's nice is there's no screw on the end. So if you do slide a lot, you're not going to grind down the bolt head. So these are available as well. Got the engine covers. Got one on the other side that I'll show you as well. You might have noticed before the axle sliders from Woodcraft. We got these guys here as well. Front and back, along with the swing arm spools. And obviously the Woodcraft stand. I have to say that's probably the best stand that I've used since the days of the handy stands. Very good stuff. And there's the ignition cover. We do have rear sets, though they're not shown here. We got rear sets that are going to be coming on very shortly, so you can stay tuned for that. I'm going to raise it up and provide a lot of adjustability. So for those who are looking to get a little bit more clearance for cornering or work at the track, we'll have that stuff available soon. The other thing that I showed you guys and probably didn't mention is this 520 chain conversion. It's gold, right? Yeah, that's cool. But saves a little bit of weight. Not a tremendous amount, but it does save some weight. What it allowed us to do was run a longer chain. So we're essentially running 2 pitches longer, which allows us to run the swing arm just a touch longer. So that kind of corrects the wheelbase. From Yamaha, they shortened up the wheelbase and they advertised that it was done for handling reasons. But if you read between the lines, they changed the gearing from the R1 to the FZ-10, and when they did that, they didn't change the chain length. So as a result, with that larger sprocket, it shortened up the wheelbase. Correcting that does a tremendous amount for stability. Flickability really isn't changed, but the ability to put down power and get traction right out of the corner is just markedly improved. So for those who are interested, you know, it might not make sense to do this right now, but as your chain starts to wear out and you're looking to upgrade down the road, highly recommend it. It's practically free at that point. What else here? The other thing I would mention is the seat. This is the Yamaha seat, the accessory seat. Not much to say about it except it works really well. Normally I'm not the one to run aftermarket seats because the stock stuff typically works very well for me personally. But I gotta say, the factory seat was absolutely terrible. After less than a half hour, I would just get some terrible hot spots that would persist throughout the rest of the ride, and it was just very uncomfortable. This raises up the seat about 1 inch, so you do get a little bit more leg room, and if you're obviously on the shorter side, you're gonna have to consider that. But once you're on the bike, it is very comfortable. So for the money, it's a very good seat. So at the time that we bought this, there were no other aftermarket options as far as the Corbin or the Sargent, but I believe that that is either changed recently or is in the process of changing, so you'll have some options. This one though could be good, but like everybody else, might work for you, might not, you'll have to see. Worked for us. Other piece from Yamaha that works good is their windscreen. This was done essentially to provide a little bit of wind protection to the torso during the winter time frame. Probably going to take this thing off during the summer months when it's warmer because I like the naked feel, I like the look, I like the airflow. But this works really well. So we previously ran two other windscreens, both from California Scientific. One very tall and one shorter smoked, and they worked okay at the wind protection. The very tall one was uncontrollable for wind buffeting for us here, so that didn't make the cut. Their shorter smoked one was pretty good, but it still had some movement. It still flexed quite a bit. This guy, because of their bracket arrangement they have and the shape of the curves, it's a little bit more rigid of a piece of plastic. It doesn't move nearly at all when you're moving down the road, so it doesn't really distract you out of the corner of your eye. Nice windscreen though, it's definitely a good bit of kit. So if you're gonna try to do some touring or if you want some cold weather or rain protection, something to consider. Other things not shown, we put in a lightweight lithium battery, the anti-gravity stuff made here in the States, saved about 5 pounds. If you add up all the weight savings so far, even with the stuff we added, we're down about 10 pounds, so somewhere down in the 450, 453 range. Honestly, it's very hard to tell those 10 pounds, but it's there. Also did a little bit of work up here. We got the Oxford heated grips. I like warm hands, as I'm sure most of us. We got the heated gear controller mounted right there. We also did some ECU work, which is something that you clearly can't see. But the FZ-10 had, though not as bad as the FZ-09, had a little bit of on and off throttle snatchiness. ECU's actually in here, very easy to get to. But it had some very abrupt snatchiness. And between the three modes, I found that the standard mode was the smoothest, more or less going up and down. It was a little bit lazy as you're increasing the revs, but it worked very well going down while you're decelerating. B mode was nice coming up the revs. It was aggressive, but you can get around it. Coming down, I just found the engine braking was a bit too much. Combine all that with the fact that Yamaha North America had decided to limit our throttle plate openings over 8,000 RPM and even down below. The US spec, and I believe Canadian spec as well, are down about 10 horsepower versus the European stuff. So you can kind of unlock a lot of the ECU by doing that work. Makes a tremendous difference. So we did some work with Nels at Two Wheel Dyno Works. They do a great job with fueling and timing. So we took their base map, we applied it here, we took out all the restrictions, obviously, as I mentioned, and then we spent a considerable amount of time doing some work with the throttle curves, deceleration curves, had to have flash tune extend the limits, if you will, for some of the areas that we were going to modify. So that's just about done. It works very well. There's no concern anymore about what the bike is going to do and how it's going to do it. It's very predictable, and you kind of forget what the engine's doing, which is nice, which is very nice. So the bike is the same great bike we started with. It's obviously just better. And you're going to ask yourself, well, how much better should it be? There's been an awful lot of money put in this. And the answer is, you're absolutely right. There is quite a bit of money sitting here. Some of this was done for the purpose of R&D, and some of it was just done for experimentation. So what would I do if I were to do it again? Definitely the suspension. There's no question. I just didn't have the comfort. The seat was important. The brakes were absolutely important. I would probably skip the wave rotors unless I just had to have the look or was using them on the track, but they do work extraordinarily well, so it depends what you're looking for. The wheels, that's probably primarily an aesthetic change, though I do like them. So I would say if you're on like a bit of a budget, those are probably something that you can avoid, and you could build up a second set of wheels off of eBay or something on the cheap. But yeah, that's more or less it. It's been a great 6 months. The bike works really well. We still got some more projects for it, so stay tuned. We're gonna be doing some more work. I'm not gonna spoil any surprises right now, but there's some other stuff coming out. So please stay tuned. If you have any questions, obviously, please let us know. You can get us here on our YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and obviously our website, in addition to the web forums as well. So any questions, guys, please let us know. Very happy to help, and we're here for you guys. So to all you guys watching in February, spring's right around the corner. Hang in there. Spring's almost here. Ride safe. We'll talk to you guys soon.